everyone, and welcome to the show where you get to stump me. No. I like laughing at myself. I just figured, just for a change, because it's a great way to learn things, that I'd let people in the chat ask me questions. If somebody wants to actually hop in and ask me a question live, I do have a couple of spaces there with StreamYards. If you want a link, I'll shoot you one. See if you can get me to go, holy crap, I've got no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Because that makes me learn, and it makes you guys learn, and I think that's a good thing. So I know there was some stuff in the question in the chat earlier, and I will go back and have a quick look. But I'll say hi to everyone first. Hi Robert, hi Sam, hi Scummer. Who else is there? Spooky. Hey Spooky. And Paul. Hi Paul. I owe you a huge apology, Paul. I am so sorry. I've been so sidetracked with my own stuff. I completely forgot about what you asked me to do for you. I apologize. Now we don't have many people there, but let's see. We've got a few questions. How is a raven like a writing desk? Asked Sam. How is a raven like a writing? Well, you might, in the old days, you might have a quill on a writing desk, in which case it would have a feather on it. So maybe that's where you're going with that. To be perfectly honest, I don't know. Biology is not my strong suit. Strong suit. Neither is English, obviously. That is the one thing I can possibly think of, that you might, there'll be a feather in a raven and a feather on a desk, maybe. Where I don't know if raven feathers were ever used for quills, but it's possible. Robert X asks, could a programming question. Would it be possible to write a program in script to influence the chat settings, making the live chat be the default? Yeah, technically you could have a script that does that. The Tampa Monkey scripts that we use for with StreamYards and several other things can influence the way web pages are presented. So you could technically force it into being in live chat instead of top chat all the time. Whether it would be worth the effort to go to that compared to actually clicking the button, I don't know. But yeah, you definitely could do that. Let's see. Yeah. Obviously that question was to Scummer, not me. Have I been stumped too much? Probably. Let's see. What if what's the flying way to the Harris Hook? No, you've definitely stumped me there, Paul. I have absolutely no idea. Ask me questions in biology and I'm done. Some biology stuff I'm going to know, but if you're going to be specific about a specific type of things, like I know a fair amount of things about a fair amount of subjects, but niche weights of flying birds, I haven't got a fucking clue. But good question. First stumping. Oh, I'm going to get stumped well tonight. Oh, hey, Donald, good night. So have we got any more questions here, or does anyone want to jump in and ask me a question live, or just jump in here so they can laugh at me when I get stuff wrong? So yeah, if anyone's interested in that, just send me a request or ask in chat here, and I'll send you a link. In the interim, seeing as how nobody seems to have any more questions at the moment, I'm in the wrong spot on my stuff, so I couldn't see if the stream was working. That's really clever of me. Let's have a look at a couple of bits of science news then. Giant black hole found in cosmic spider web. This is a story about the early universe, about 900 million years after the Big Bang, or the early expansion of the universe, where scientists have been able to observe a supermassive black hole in the center area between a whole heap of strands of gas and dark matter that is slowly stripping apart the smaller galaxies that are around it. So it's pulling the gas out of those galaxies, pulling those galaxies in closer to it, and feeding itself, growing, and at the same time causing all these surrounding galaxies to merge in around it, therefore making a bigger galaxy. It's the first sighting we've had of the early universe where we've been able to see supermassive black holes form, and also see the formation of larger galaxies from these smaller irregular ones. So it's an amazing find and teaches us a lot about the early universe. So yeah, quite amazing that we're able to see that far back and get a good idea of what's happening. Yeah, so 2.5 pounds is the weight of the Hawk. Wow, awesome. They generally have to... Actually, that's quite heavy for... Oh, I suppose it depends on the size of the Hawk, but yeah. Is the Harris Hawk particularly a large hawk, Paul? Because I'd be interested to know that, because how does that compare to the weight of it, and then how strong is it? How much extra musculature would it have to fly then because of its weight? So... A jellyfish can make its own anus and it disappears. Yep. My hawk. Okay, Scammer, you're going to throw me a maths question. 5 divided by 0 is... yeah. It is something that you can't have. I mean... from a normal point, from a simplistic point of view, sorry for the clunk, division is repetitive subtraction. So when you're doing a division, you're basically subtracting that number from the original number over and over again until you can't do it anymore. The problem with dividing by 0 is, of course, that never stops. So technically it goes on forever. But you can't effectively do that. There is no logical way that you could effectively continuously subtract by 0. You've got an infinite regress there, which was the problem that maths had always had. That's why the development of calculus was required. Because whilst we can intuitively think that 5 divided by 0 must have a value that approaches infinity, I mean, it'll never get there because it goes on forever. So it's the old adage of some infinities are larger than others. So which infinity is this? If it can go on forever, what is its infinity? But we can say that it approaches infinity. As the repetitive subtraction continues to happen, the number of times it's iterated approaches infinity. It never gets there, but it approaches it. And that was the concept that got us over the thing of creating calculus and having limits and these concepts of things, of numbers that can approach infinity. So yes, the answer of 5 divided by 0 is unanswerable in conventional maths. In calculus, we say the limit of that approaches infinity. It's one of those concepts you kind of have to learn to get your head around calculus. Calculus is a little tad more complicated than that, but yeah, it's one of those things. Yep, you have 5 apples and you want to share with no people. You still have 5 apples. No, but the answer is not 5 because it's... Even though you say that, functionally, division is a regressive... is a repetitive subtraction function, just like multiplication is a repetitive addition. It's the same thing. Everything boils down to an addition. Multiplication is an addition. Subtraction is the addition of negative numbers. So it's the same thing. All our maths derives from the concepts of addition. Yeah, you're not going to stump me with maths questions, or unlikely to. Okay, how does the space toilet cost $21 million? Okay. Space toilets are really, really complicated things. For one thing, you can't have any water in a space toilet. A space toilet has to be a dry toilet. But it has to be able to cope with bodily excrements like urine and shit, obviously. So it has to cope with things that actually do contain water. So space toilets generally create their own vacuum pressure. So if you sit your butt down on a space toilet to do a poop, you're sucked to the toilet, and then the pressure of the toilet sucks the poop down and out and away. Likewise, if you need to urinate, they have special attachments for both men and women that you hold over your rude bits, and you can urinate. The space toilets themselves become very, very complicated because you have to make that suction. The suction can't be too great that it causes pain or discomfort to the astronaut using it, but it has to be enough that it collects all of the waste. So the technology that's gone into it, the development, the testing, and everything, and then they have to fly it into space to test it in space as well, is what makes them so expensive. Especially as you're developing, you have to develop it for both genders. I mean, you have to have a toilet that works for both types of anatomy. So it becomes quite complicated. Where you don't have the advantage of gravity, you have to make up for that in some other method, or else you're going to end up with poop flying around, or the astronauts are going to have to wear Depends. Which does happen. I mean, in their spacesuits, astronauts actually wear adult diapers. So it is a thing. When they say astronauts wee themselves, they actually do when they're in their spacesuits. If they need to go, they can't get in and out of it quickly, so they have an adult diaper on, and they have to clean themselves up after they get back. They have to have the right sort of disposal techniques to get rid of all that waste, because the last thing you want is any of that waste floating around inside the spacecraft. Not just from a point of view of, oh, that's disgusting, but also from the point of view that excess water vapor that's floating around in the spaceship, plus any other little things that end up floating around, can be dangerous to the equipment that's within the spaceship. So you don't want a random little bit of poop to fly into something and actually cause damage. So you need to be very careful with this stuff. When astronauts do their demonstrations in space with bits of water and other things that they've got floating around and everything, they have to be very careful to clean everything up afterwards, just to make sure that they're not going to cause any problems for themselves later. Okay, you don't want to stump me on the what's a triangle of one what are the angles of a triangle that's one sides one and one, an equilateral triangle. Do I need a triangle calculator? No. 60 degrees on each angle, because all the internal angles of a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees. Yep. So where were we? Question: why do religious people think the flagellum motor or DNA blueprint is proof of a god? That's that irreducible complexity argument, where they think that all the aspects of this particular device cannot, this particular organic development cannot be functional in any of its smaller components. It has to be all there at once. So therefore it cannot have evolved because each of the steps on the way doesn't give you anything that's useful, which has been proven time and time again to not be the case. Even with the flagellum's motor, even if you take away some of the aspects of it, it is useful for other things. And that has been shown in the lab to be entirely true, that it does. And there's nothing to state that a certain aspect of that couldn't have been used for something else before it evolved into the flagellum motor as well. So they often argue this, say, with the eye, and the eye's a lot easier one to understand because it's very simple to see. Oh yeah, you've got this thing, blind little multicellular organism that's living in the water, but it needs to know which way is up in the water, and they've got pressure sensitivity for the depth of the water, but if you're near the surface, the sunlight's a lot easier way to do that. So they develop cells on their skin that can detect the sunlight. In time, that becomes a clump of cells. The cells might devolve into a cup-like structure so that they can tell what angle the light is coming from. And then you might develop a lens over the top of that to focus it. It's very simple as we've got all these different types of eyes in the historical record, and still alive today, most of them. It's very easy to see how the eye could have evolved, and they will still argue that irreducibly complex. Well, no, it's not, because we can see the simpler versions of the eyes, and it's the same with the flagellum. There are actually microbes that have undeveloped parts of themselves that are like earlier stages of the flagellum, and they serve different purposes. So it is quite easy to say that we can see that the flagellum did evolve. It's pretty simple, and it's the same thing with the DNA blueprint thing. The problem is that because we now have a fairly good understanding of DNA, certainly a lot better than we had 30-40 years ago, they see this as a big amount of information, and if you've got information, you have to have someone or something that put the information in there in the first place. But DNA isn't really that. DNA is just a chemical blueprint for how things should be made, which can develop over time. It's a natural thing that's developed. Biology is not my strong suit. Eyes more complex in sea or in land. The eye has actually evolved at least 3 times that we know of. Human eyes come from an early fish ancestor that through amphibians and reptiles and to mammals and stuff like that. So we all go back to a common ancestor across that route. That particular eye is not as well evolved as the eye that evolved for cephalopods, because the nerve cluster for the eye in all reptiles, mammals, amphibians actually joins at the front of the eye. So the nerve bundle that is used to pick up the light that goes into the eye actually blocks some of the light from getting to our eyes, which makes our eyes less efficient. However, with cephalopods, those nerves actually join from the back of the eye, from the retina, and therefore they don't get that blockage. They get more light in and they have a clearer image. Our eyes are actually a compromise as land-dwelling animals, because the eyes actually developed to work in the ocean, where certain functions of the way the eye worked relied on the distortion and water pressure that was actually on the eye from the outside. And because of this, our eyes are actually less functionable on the land than they actually are in the water, even after all these years of evolution. It's one of those things that shows that we evolved originally from sea-dwelling creatures, and it's part of that lineage thing. The other one is, of course, the... Whoa! Sorry, people. I will turn that down. I might turn that down. Yeah, it's... It's like the nerve that goes around the larynx and back up into the brain. And I honestly can't remember what the name of the nerve is, because I hate that when I do that. But you've got your nerves. This nerve loops down around, not the larynx, around part of the heart's aorta, and comes back up into the brain. Now, it does this on all land-dwelling mammals, which means even on a giraffe, it goes all the way from the top, all the way down and back up to the brain. And why? That makes no sense. If you were designed by an engineer, they wouldn't do that. So it's but when you take it back to what we were originally, these little tiny fish-like creatures in the ocean, that distance was tiny. So that was a perfectly justifiable way for that to go. No sound? Oh, the sound from my phone, or hang on. No sound? No. What happened? No sound? No, you've got sound. Okay, what's going on here? Alright. Oh yeah, the human body is definitely all sorts of messed up, and it's all related to how we evolved over time. So yeah, it's yeah, I've been going on and on this. So yeah. Is the TARDIS behind me small or far away? It's definitely small. Where is it? Hi, Santi. Hi, Ed. How much do elephants normally... What's with all the biology questions? I know you could stop me with them. I have no idea. It's an awful lot. Elephants eat an immense amount of food each day, and I couldn't tell you exactly how much it is. It's a very large amount, and it's an awful lot of poop that they do. That's why zoo poo is so good. Read Spooky's question about my TARDIS. Yeah, well, that's probably the delay. But yeah, yeah. Hang on a second. I haven't been paying attention to see if anybody actually wanted to come in. I'll send a couple of links there if anybody wants to hop in. They can, who's in the groups that I've just sent that to. Yeah. What was I doing? I'll try and listen for it if anyone does hop in. Now I've lost the chart. Where is it? There we are. There we are. Oh, if it wasn't related. Okay, I get that. No, my phone plays the Doctor Who theme tune when it rings, and my mother tried to phone me, but she should know better than to phone me at like 8:30 at night, so I hung up. I'll call her back later. But yeah, this is only tiny. It used to make TARDIS sounds when you push the light on the top, but it needs new batteries. It's actually a cookie jar, technically, but I don't store cookies in it. Oh yeah, Sandy, we definitely weren't designed by a great engineer if we were designed. certainly way too many screw-ups made on the design of this world. What is the Crab Nebula made of? Oh, that's cool. The Crab Nebula was made when a very super red giant, very large super red giant star came to the end of its life and went kaboom and exploded. There is actually a neutron star remnant in the middle of the Crab Nebula. At the time when it happened, which I believe was about the 15th century, it was the brightest object in the night sky. It was actually, it wasn't as large in the sky, but it was brighter than the full moon. And, you know, it's in a galaxy over from us, so that gives you an idea of how bright supernovas are. Yeah, it's supernovas are a fascinating thing. I would dearly, dearly love for Betelgeuse to go supernova whilst I'm alive, just so I can see one. Because seeing that up close, where you'll get a really good view of it, it would be outstanding, as long as it's not too close that it kills us all. Because the problem with supernovas is they are highly energetic. The amount of high energy particles that they send out are enough that if they're within a couple of hundred light years, they can strip the atmosphere off of planets like Earth. Earth does not have enough gravity to maintain its atmosphere if it gets hit by the ion stream that would come, or the charged particle stream that would come from a supernova. And it's even worse if the supernova that goes off has its poles pointed in your direction, because then you get hit by a gamma ray burst, which is even more deadly. So, and that could be over an even greater distance. It was with the fear of Betelgeuse going supernova has never been about how close it is to Earth. It's too far away that the charged particles would be a problem. It is possibly close enough that if it was end onto us, so we have one of the poles pointing at us, that a gamma ray burst could strip our atmosphere of all its O3, all its ozone, which would effectively bake all life on Earth, which is kind of scary, but because we had no idea which way Betelgeuse was actually aligned. Although from when it dimmed at the end of last year, earlier this year, that gave us an idea of which way it was aligned, and it appears not to be pointing in our direction, which is kind of nice. Now, where will Paul Prefect call home if Betelgeuse explodes? I have no idea. That would be up to Douglas Adams to decide, and he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. If there are a million ways the world could end tomorrow, we just sort of have to exist. That is quite true. There are a lot of things that could end the universe. One of the most random ones for us has to do with the equilibrium of energy within the universe. So basically our universe exists because there is a small but tiny there is a sorry, I got sidetracked. There is a small but tiny positive amounts of energy within our universe. I mean, you can think, oh, but there's heaps of energy. The star, on average, the energy potential of the universe is so close to zero that it almost may as well be zero, but it's slightly positive, and that is the reason why we actually exist. So, what we don't know is if that energy potential sits all the way in a nice little valley where it's nice and safe and secure, or is it sitting in because you can have a graph that's kind of like, here's your top, loop down, and then there's a little peak back up until you've got a little ball, you got a little dip in here, and then you've got to drop down. Now, if we are sitting in the lowest potential state of the universe at the moment, and that's slightly above zero, we're fine. If we're sitting up here and there's a lower potential state of the universe, and this little thing drops over into the next lower potential state, we are screwed. Everything almost instantaneously throughout the entire universe basically stops existing. It's an interesting way to think of it, but you wouldn't even know about it because it would happen instantaneously throughout the entire universe, which is also weird to think about when you think that we don't have anything that happens instantaneously throughout the universe. Everything propagates at the speed of light. This wouldn't, because this would fundamentally change the nature of the universe, and it wouldn't propagate at the speed of light. It would happen instantaneously. A change in that would happen instantaneously. So yeah, not great. That's probably one of the more instantaneous death ones, although we wouldn't know about it because it would just sort of happen. In much the same way as the universe just sort of happening could have just been a slight change in that energy potential of whatever the ground state of the universe, and that's what triggered the Big Bang. So due to the way that quantum fluctuations happen, these potentials can change. It just at various times, so it just depends how much. If it wasn't sitting at the bottom and it was sitting in one of those little ledges, it would just depend how much of a change at the quantum level would be needed to drop it over the edge and screw us all over. It's more than likely we are sitting in the bottom level, because I would have thought in the nearly 14 billion years that since the Big Bang, we might have had enough potential of a change that it ended anyway. So, but we don't know. It's one of those things that science does not know, but science can definitely think of the cruel and unusual ways to destroy everything. Okay, what have I missed here? What flavor is my cake? Oh, Ed's cake. Ed, yes, your cake. Happy birthday again, Ed. I did say happy birthday yesterday, but I'll say happy birthday again to Ed. Could coming... so is that a question, Scummer? Could coming face to face with your future self create a time paradox that could destroy the universe? Yeah. Time's an interesting one like that. I would have thought that if there was the potential for time travel, someone in the future would have invented it and we would be seeing time travelers from the future. Unless, of course, there's some sort of temporal prime directive like Star Trek and they just don't do that. But, yeah, I mean, people being people, someone would break the rules. We don't see that. I mean, there are people who claim to be that, but yeah, they're quite obviously full of shit. We also don't see any real evidence that time travel into the past is actually possible. Though any timelines out of general relativity that could do that require really exotic matter, which we're not even sure actually does exist. So, require really weird things like black holes that orbit close to the speed of light of each other and orbit in weird patterns so that they can bend the space-time around them, and then you have to transverse that space. You just get torn apart, more than likely. Quantum mechanics also seems to suggest that that it doesn't like these sort of things to happen. In theory, there was an experiment done where they were looking at is the arrow of time symmetrical, and what that means is as time rolls forward, we get to a certain position. If we could roll time backwards, would we get back to the root cause, the starting point? And what they did was they did this experiment that was experimenting with orbiting black holes, done over about a year on a whole heap of supercomputers that they put the equations that we know now and all the variables that we could think of now into them, ran it forwards, then ran it backwards, and did not end up back where they started from. Even though they had enough data there to in theory, do that, the universe does not appear to be like to be run in reverse. And you don't get back to where you started. So even if you traveled back in time, the chances are, because of the nature of quantum mechanics and the subtleties within general relativity itself, the timeline you travel back on would not be the same timeline you traveled forward on. Which brings us into the concept of parallel universes and do we live in a multiverse? Something else that we don't actually know. There have been proposed some tests to figure out if we do live in a multiverse or not. We have no way of really testing them at the moment. But for the moment, it looks like time travel is probably impossible. So that kind of brings to mute the concept of, could you go back in time when you met yourself, would it destroy the universe? Well, you probably couldn't go back in time and see yourself anyway. Would appear to be the nature of the universe that we live in. You could go back, you could conceivably go back in time, but the yourself that you saw back there actually wouldn't be the you that is you. It'd be a parallel you. And in that universe, you were obviously always going to do that because time appears to not care about what we think of as free will. Okay. Can I use titty nope in a sentence? No, that was last night. Go watch that show. All right, I've been talking and not paying attention. Sam. Okay. Why Mars? Why not Mars? What? I mean, the whole point of exploration has always been why not? I mean, we are humans. We are incredibly adventurous. We want to get out there and see stuff and figure stuff out. And Mars is a good choice for that. I mean, Venus is going to melt us. We couldn't live on it. There's no... well, there is conceivable ways we could do it, but not with any technology we have at the moment. Mars has potential, and it's reasonably close. You know, you can do it in 6 to 9 months, depending on the trajectories you use and the type of rocket fuel, etc., etc. So yeah, why not Mars? Mars is a good option. I'm not terribly keen on the whole idea of sending people there to live there permanently because while some people don't give a shit about the rest of the people that center around their own lives, I think being 7 minutes time difference between Mars and Earth when you're close, and over an hour time difference when you're on the opposite sides of the sun, might be enough to actually terrify people from actually wanting to be there permanently. When you actually think about how isolated that is. Human beings don't generally cope with long-term isolation well, even when that isolation includes a small group of other people. And we don't cope well with small groups of other people, not for the long term, because people fight and people are vindictive and horrible and nasty in the core. No, not always, but it does happen. You're living in close quarters with the same people over and over again. There's going to be tension. It's human nature. So I don't know that sending people there on a permanent basis is good. A permanent base would be good, but then you have to have a way to get people back and get the next lot of people out there. And it's a very long time. You're looking at 9 months there, 9 months back, and probably at least a year or more. Well, it's a 2 years before Mars and Earth are properly back in alignment anyway. So 2 years, you're talking about 3-year missions at least to achieve this, and that's a long time. Not something I'm ultimately keen on. I would rather we've set up moon bases first and got used to the idea of how to do this and shifting people backwards and forwards and also develop better technologies for these long haul trips. If we started building our spacecraft on the moon, we could look at having nuclear powered craft, because we're not launching nuclear powered vessels from Earth then. So we could have nuclear-powered craft where they could get to Mars and back in 3 months. Well, no, get to Mars in 3 months and back in another 3 months. That means you could, each time Earth and Mars are close, do the trip. And you're cutting down that time spent on Mars from 3 years to 2 years. And if you get even better with that technology, you could even look at doing them when they're even that little further apart, like on opposite sides of the sun. You know, your 3-month trip might become a 9-month trip to get to Mars, but it's doable. So yeah, I am definitely of the opinion that we should be getting out there and getting to these other planets, but yeah, baby steps until we have the technology that's better for getting there and supporting these places, because otherwise we could be technically sending people to their deaths, and I'm not keen on that. Let's see, what else we got. What is a beam reach? That's a good question, Dave. I actually don't know. My first thought is this is one of those things like, what's a long wait? Okay, what else have we got? Okay. What do I think of the idea of the many worlds hypothesis and could create what is effectively time travel? I think I kind of covered that when I went down the thing of the multiverse. Where are we? Robert X. I traveled back from a different timeline and now I'm stuck here because there is no time travel in this timeline. But in this timeline we have YouTube, so that's a plus. Throw comments at it. Yes, we can. Time traveling forwards in time is definitely a thing, and we all do it. We all time travel to the future. Can we make the moon livable? If you mean, could we give it an atmosphere and enough gravity that it felt like home? No. We could. It would be possible to if you could get enough oxygen there to give it a temporary atmosphere. It wouldn't be very, very dense. You'd still have to have some sort of respiration device, but you might not have to carry tanks around on you, and you might only need a light pressure suit to walk around on the surface. So that's a possibility. But it is probably more trouble than it's worth compared to building solid domes or even digging in underground and building underground cities on the moon. So making the moon livable is, not necessarily a case of turning it into somewhere like Earth, but having sections of it that can feel very much like Earth. I agree with Sam. A moon base is kind of important if you want to get around the solar system. The whole concept of Mars Direct, it looks great on paper and is probably a cheaper way to do it than having to build moon bases and facilities to launch from the moon and fueling stations on the moon and things like that. But in terms of protecting your astronauts and your explorers and that, I'd put it at akin to trying to send people from Europe to the New World in rowing boats. Because, hey, look, we can do it with a rowing boat. Don't worry, later on we'll build some big ships that can do it, but you guys can get there first in the rowing boat. It's not sensible. You get your fleet first and you make sure you've got backup for people and then you go. And it's what we need to look at doing with getting to Mars and anywhere else in the solar system. I'm a firm believer of nuclear-powered spacecraft. I know there's treaties about it, but screw them. Having nuclear-powered spacecraft gets us around the solar system in time frames that are much better for us to manage. Yeah, a moon base would allow for things such as asteroid mining. There's been a few asteroids now found that are up to 20% gold, which I'm pretty sure there's some mining companies who'd be incredibly interested in that. Um, no, you'd be wrong there, Robert. They haven't actually done studies on could you build an atmosphere on the moon. If you could get enough atmosphere around it, the moon could probably hold onto an atmosphere for for a couple of 100,000 years. Really, really short time scale in the terms of the solar system, but as us as a species, that's a decent amount of time. The problem would be the moon couldn't hold on to a thick atmosphere. It has a tenuous one now, anyway. It's just really, 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 really tiny. The Earth wouldn't drag it off. In fact, the Earth would, in some respects, help protect it. I mean, there isn't much of the Earth's magnetosphere that reaches that far out, but it helped protect a little bit. So yeah, you could do it, but yeah, it's one of those engineering projects that if you have the technology to do that, to put an atmosphere on the moon and make it semi like Earth for a couple of 100,000 years, you've got technology that can get out in the rest of the solar system and get to other bodies in the solar system that are a little bit further away from the sun that you're not going to have the atmosphere stripped as badly from. Which, like Jupiter's magnetosphere stretches out a long way, and it's further from the sun, so you could technically maintain an atmosphere on a planet out there a lot easier than you could on our own moon. And plus, you're dealing with larger moons that have more gravity as well. So, yeah, it's fascinating. Space 1999. Yes, that was an interesting show. Let's blow up a nuclear stockpile on the moon, and that's going to send the moon into space. No. Yeah, that's not how physics works. You'd have to put out one hell of a lot of energy to shift the moon. Any appreciable amount, even setting, you basically blow the moon apart before you shifted it. Well, mostly apart before you shifted it. I suppose you'd only have to blow half of it apart, because pushing half of it off in one direction will push the other half off in the other direction. So, yeah. Logical people have no problem with isolation. It's self-entertaining. Yeah. Most people who've been in long isolations situations have not liked it after a given amount of time. The record's a little over a year, I believe, and the guy who came out of that was not too happy about it at the end of it, but he wanted the record. They have studied this isolating syndrome, and it's quite real. People don't cope with it over long term. Okay. Is space contamination a real thing? If you mean why do we make sure we don't send any microbes on spacecraft that like we send to Mars or wherever? Yeah, because I mean, the thing about microbes is that some of the ones we have here on Earth have had millions of years of evolution now, and they're quite hardy and they can survive quite well. And even going through space, they can survive for months and months and months and months and months and months out there. They basically go into a kind of hibernation. They land on Mars. If they can survive at that if they can revive at that lower temperature and get out on the surface, and they can survive there, they will multiply. Now, that would mean that we may detect life on Mars, but it may be from us. We would have actually caused panspermia to Mars, and life from here has had longer to evolve, so it may be able to dominate any native life that was on Mars. If we find life on Mars, we want to know that it was there before we got there, regardless of whether it's the same life that we have here, in which case that says that there was some form of panspermia between Mars and Earth, or it doesn't matter which way around it happened, but it happened. Or it evolved separately on Mars, which would be even more fascinating. So we don't want to contaminate Mars because we want to know if the life we find there actually originated there or not. So we could totally screw that by contaminating Mars. That's assuming we do find life there. We've got the same problems like when we sent the Huygens probe into Titan. You had to make sure there was no life on there because with oceans of hydrocarbons, it's quite possible that there could be some sort of life that's evolved on Titan or may evolve in the future. And if we contaminate that, we change the way that things are. So yeah, there is a thing of being cautious, especially as we're still learning and discovering. So, but having said that, we have deliberately crashed satellites that were around Saturn and Jupiter into Saturn and Jupiter to destroy them, so that they didn't land on the moons. Now, with some of the discoveries about Venus recently, with the prospect that there might be microbes living in the atmosphere, it's only a might. It's a very narrow might, but it's a possibility. Is it possible that in some of the outer clouds on Jupiter or Saturn there is life? And have we contaminated that? Because a lot of the ones that just stay in space, that don't land on the surfaces of planets, we are not as careful about. Because, we don't care, basically, when it comes to that. But anything that we've landed anywhere, we've tried to be pretty careful about. Okay, what is Vegemite made of? I'm sorry, Ed, it's taken me a while to get there. Vegemite is a yeast extract. So it's fermented yeast. Yeah, it's fermented, but it's not alcoholic. So it's why it has a really rich, tangy flavour. It's similar in concept to the way Marmite's made in the UK, but it's a different breed of yeast, so it tastes differently, and there's other things that are in it that make it taste differently. But yeah, it's a similar thing. Yeah, Robert. Without the moon, the wobble of Earth's axis would be more erratic. The moon actually helps stabilize our axes, so if we didn't have the moon, it's quite possible we'd have very wide differences in the wobble of the axis, which would mess up our seasons immensely. The moon has also helped regulate the length of the day on Earth, and to a certain extent has also probably helped to reduce the tidal slowdown of Earth's rotation, which is caused by the sun's interaction with the atmosphere, of which is one of the things that they think is that slowed down Venus's rotation, was the interaction between the sun and the atmosphere and everything, because that does actually affect the Earth's rotation. But the moon's orbit around the Earth actually helps to stabilize that. So whilst the rotation of the Earth has changed, in fact, it used to be the Earth used to rotate faster, and it has slowed down. It hasn't slowed down as anywhere near like like Venus did. And the slowing down of Venus's rotation didn't help in terms of its runaway greenhouse gas emissions. It also didn't help that about 1 million years ago, the entire surface of Venus resurfaced itself through volcanic activity, which is probably one of the major contributing factors to the increase in the temperature on Venus through greenhouse warming. Wouldn't it be easier to change the atmosphere of a planet that already has one? Not necessarily. It comes down to the size of the planet you're trying to change the atmosphere to. I mean, think about Venus. You want to make Venus more like Earth, you're going to have to reduce the size of its atmosphere. Now, doing that is very expensive in terms of energy. I mean, we could do it. There's no technical reason why you couldn't do it, but the energy cost of doing it is immense. And we at the moment couldn't produce the energy required for it. Not that we wouldn't have the ways of producing the energy, we just don't have the will for it. I mean, anything that costs that sort of money isn't going to happen anytime soon. We'd have to have a change in the economic ideals of our world to have some of these projects which could raise us up on the Kardashev scale to maybe a Type 1 civilization. We could achieve full Type 1 with the technology we have now if we invested the money into it to do the things required. It's not hard to start work on building a Dyson swarm. We have the technology now. We can make solar panels, we can beam energy around, we can collect that energy, we can put it to use on the Earth or in space. We could start building one. And it wouldn't take long to get to high enough energy levels, but it'll cost money. And the way our economies work, the capitalistic nature of our global economies, such a way that it doesn't promote this unless there's a personal gain to be made from it for a wealthy individual or a government. And there just isn't. And that's the biggest thing. Okay, I might, yeah. Yeah, pretty much, Sam. Humans aren't Type 1 because we don't play nice. Yeah, it's not just so much the not play nice. It's the a lot of our ideas are too much about self gain and not about the betterment of us as a species. So, if our focus was about improving ourselves as a species rather than how much can I get out of this, then we could definitely make ourselves into a close to a Type 1. I'm not overly keen on some of the ideas of the Kardashev scale anyway. To be a species that is in control of what's happening within their own solar system, you don't have to take all the energy of your sun and reuse it. It's not required. There's an awful lot of energy there, and you can do just about anything you'd want to do within the solar system with only taking a small percentage of it. So it's not necessarily worth building a Dyson swarm that completely covers your star and makes you very obvious to any surrounding alien species because you've just dimmed your star, when you can build a less obvious swarm and still get enough energy to do all the things that you need to do. So, and then of course you've got things like once you've got less of an energy worry, you've got a lot of surplus energy you can use. You can start developing other things that help your civilization, and you can develop newer technologies that actually make use of that energy even better, or other ways of developing that energy like fusion and stuff like that. So these scientific gains beget more scientific gains. So if our requirements aren't about how much money can I make out of it and how much better we can make life for everybody on the planet or within the solar system, then that way of developing as a species happens quicker, so we'd get into that Kardashev 1 kind of level faster. While we're a civilization that's driven by greed to a large extent, that's unlikely to happen fast. There's a proviso to that though. If some billionaire suddenly decides that building a Dyson swarm and selling all that energy back to Earth is a great plan for making shit tons of money, it'll happen. If they decide that a certain asteroid is so worth mining that we're going to invest the money into building all the technology to do it, then it will happen. So this comes out with the same thing of like Elon Musk wanting to get people to Mars. I mean, it's his dream. He wants to be able to do it, so he's prepared to put the money into it. He's not doing it necessarily for his own financial gain, but he's aware that the technologies will give him financial gain, especially in terms of launching satellites, doing Starshot for internet and things like that. So there is a gain side of it as well for him. He certainly wouldn't just throw all his money away if he didn't think he couldn't get something back from it. Stop all wars, destroy all weapons, make Venus a place where we can live. Yeah, nice sentiment. I wouldn't necessarily say stop developing weapons, only because we don't know if we're the only species in the universe, and the more affluent we become, the more noticeable we become. The more closer to that Kardashev 1 level we become, definitely the more noticeable we become. And it seems to be that species that develop intelligence and technological advancements and stuff like that tend to have natures similar to ours. Developing a larger brain comes from being a predator to a large extent. So there is a predatory kind of nature that sits back there from the purpose of evolution. So I have no reason not to think that there wouldn't be certain traits similar to the ones that we exhibit that we wouldn't find in other intelligent species in the universe. Which is not necessarily a nice thought, because some of our traits are fucking horrible. Like sex streams, it's your brain trying to keep you happy. Yay! Sex streams. No. Okay, where were we? Oh, do I have any thoughts on the information paradox? We're talking black holes here, and do the information that's lost in a black hole. Yeah. I don't necessarily hold that black holes are singularities. Now, you're going to say, how the hell is it a black hole if it's not a singularity? The problem I have is that any equations that we apply to anything that we see in the universe are an approximation of the things that we see. And we know there are not irreconcilable differences. They would be reconcilable. We just don't know what they are. There are problems between the compatibility between quantum mechanics and general relativity. In terms of quantum mechanics, particles shouldn't be able to be compressed to the point that you end up with a singularity. We have problems with things getting down below the Planck length. And quantum mechanics is even more heavily tested and proven than general relativity. Now, general relativity is well tested and proven too, but we know both these things are pretty damn accurate. So something has to give somewhere. We can still have what is essentially a black hole exist that is not a point singularity, that is not actually a singularity. We can have matter condensed down to the point where there's enough of it condensed in a location that light will not escape. There you will still have an event horizon from which you cannot see anything because the gravity is holding the light there. The bending of space-time is enough that you will get that. But would you bend space-time to the point that you end up with a singularity? I actually don't think that is the case. I think what you're looking at with a black hole is an incredibly dense quark star. Yeah, quark. English is not my favorite subject. Which means that, yeah, from all intents and purposes, from looking at it from the outside, we are looking at a black hole. But is it a singularity? Probably not. That's my personal take on it. There are a few other scientists who think along the same lines. There's questions about whether it is or it isn't. It's that incompatibility between quantum mechanics and general relativity. If the black hole isn't a singularity, then even though that data is inside the event horizon and we can't see it, it still exists. Those particles still exist there within that quantum state. Technically, they could come out. So you haven't lost the data in that scenario. But even in this, even in the other scenario, one of the problems with the with the idea of the information paradox is to do with the symmetry. If you lose that information, then you're basically saying you're going to lose symmetry within the universe. The tests that we did with the tests that were done with the arrow of time and rolling time backwards, and do you get back to where you actually tend to suggest that perhaps the universe isn't as symmetrical as we once thought. So this concept of symmetry, even though it's a strong point in quantum mechanics, may be one of the aspects of quantum mechanics that is also a problem as well. It comes down to that thing of we don't know everything. We have so much more to learn. We are scratching the surface of what there is to know in science. Even though we know so much, there is so much more to know. And it's these areas where our knowledge isn't complete that bring up these paradoxes. So most paradoxes in the long run, as we find out more and more, solve themselves. They are only paradoxes in our head because in our science, because our science is incomplete, because we just don't know. Oh, wow. Um, um, yes, yeah, Dave, we thought we had detected a neutron star that actually has an event horizon, so yeah, it's quite possible. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Infinities within GR tend to ultimately be wrong. That's partly a limitation of our own maths. As beautiful as calculus is, we still have to deal with infinities, and infinities are one of the biggest problems for us in maths because as I've already said, you can have infinities within infinities. The list of countable numbers are infinite, but so are so is the list of fractions between 0 and 1. That's an infinity within an infinity. So it gets really complicated at those sort of levels. And it's probably just a concept where we probably need a new film of maths to get us to the next level. We need another Leibniz or Newton to develop the next type of maths that we're going to use that's going to get us through that next phase and really understand the connection between quantum mechanics and general relativity. And we may find that it's we're only looking at a really tiny part of it. In the same way as general relativity was a completion of what Newton started with Newtonian gravity. Newton's gravity isn't wrong. It's just a small subset of what you have in general relativity. And general relativity is quite obviously a small subset of something that's bigger, in the same way that quantum mechanics is a subset of something that's bigger, that we haven't figured out yet, that we haven't discovered yet. And that's the beauty of science. We're always discovering new things. We're always expanding our horizons. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. Oops. Stump Jen attempt. What percentage of mass? Most of it, Jeff. Most of it. More than 99% of the mass in the solar system, or the visible mass in the solar system, is contained within the sun. The sun is incredibly massive compared to the rest of the solar system. It is a phenomenal amount of mass in the sun, and yeah. The sun is huge. And yet, our sun is tiny, because it's one of the smallest stars in the... Not the smallest, obviously, because you've got red dwarfs, which are quite a lot smaller than our star. But it is a smaller star. There are a lot of stars in the galaxy. There are millions of times... Well, yeah. Significantly larger than our sun. Millions is not right. But significantly larger than our sun. Our sun is a quiet little yellow sun. You broke your game controller, Robert X. That's no good. You need your video game fix. Yeah, Sam. Infinities and subsets thereof are kind of like the information paradox. Yeah, it's one of those things. Infinities are something we have to deal with in our maths, and even if we develop a new maths that makes it simpler, we're still going to have to deal with them, but we might understand them better. Infinity is just one of those concepts that's really hard for people to get their head around. I mean, an example of that, we talk about how old the universe is. We're heading on towards 14 billion years. We're closer to 14 billion than we are to 13. But effectively, the universe itself is more likely than not infinite in age. You know, it probably always has and always will be. It's just the form that it's in. The current form the universe is in, or our part of the universe is in, is that 13.8 billion years old. And, you know, that's a hard concept for people to even imagine. Along the same lines of how big is the universe? Well, it could quite possibly be infinite. I mean, the visible universe isn't. 96 billion light years across is the visible universe. But outside of that, what lies beyond the visible universe? Because the universe still goes on after that. What lies beyond that, the rest of the universe, could effectively be infinite. Or our little bit of the universe could be the outside of an expanding bubble. So we're just this little tiny bit that we can see, and the rest of it's huge and enormous and wraps around in on itself. We don't know. Although we do tend to think that from the tests that we've done that the universe is probably flat. However, as anybody who's debunked a flat Earth will know, that if you get close enough into a sphere, it looks fucking flat. So it is really, if the size of the universe is immense, absolutely immense, and our little bit of it that we can see is this little tiny dot on the side, we wouldn't know if it was flat or spherical. And given that things tend to like to be spheres, who knows? Maybe the universe is spherical and expanding like a balloon, like a bubble. Does that mean the universe can pop? What on earth are you talking about, Dave? As I said before, if anybody wants to hop in with me, I do have spaces here. Dave or anybody, I haven't been paying attention to see if anybody did. But I did send out links before, so if anyone wants to hop in and try and stump me or correct me, you can. Welcome to come in and correct me. I know Dave would like to. Yeah. You're busy flirting. Well done, Ola. But yeah. You're busy dying. Oh, that's no good, Dave. We don't like you dying. We like you healthy. How are you going to do... No, you did your show this morning, didn't you? So you've already done your show. So you're good. Don't know where your headset is, Sam. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh! You regret doing your show, Dave. That's no good. Did you ask a question about life in the sun? Could there be life on the sun? It wouldn't be a type of life that we're aware of. Most microbes don't survive at those sort of temperatures, but there are parts of the outer corona that can get a decent distance from the sun that can get cool enough, I guess, possibly. But it's still incredibly hot, and we don't really know of anything that can survive at those sort of temperatures. Doesn't mean there isn't things that can survive at those sort of temperatures. It is quite possible that maybe you need those sort of temperatures for silicon-based life forms to exist. So maybe there's some silicon-based microbes that exist in the outer corona of the sun. I mean, the colder parts of the outer corona, because all of the corona is even hotter than the inside of the sun. But a bit further out from the sun, possibly, maybe. It's one of the big questions, isn't it? Yeah, you're welcome to hop in, Jeff. I don't know if I did send you a link. Oh, you should have the link. The link should be in my Twitter group. Well, what have I done? No, wrong one. All right, what do we got? Did English hide down an alley or in the woods when it ambushed other languages for their spare grammar? That's an awesome question. That I believe is a joke. Oh yeah, no, you wouldn't want to shake hands with life that was in the sun. Watch the latest Space Time. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah. It depends what we call life. I mean, that's the thing. We have a very narrow understanding of what life is, and it's quite possible there could be other forms of life out there that we don't even comprehend at the moment. So could there be some sort of stellar life form? Who knows? Possible. Is it coming to invade us? Let's see. Hey, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
How are you? Oh. We lost the Jeff. He's back. Hey, Jeff. How are you?
Hey, Jen. Yeah, I don't hope the background noise is too bad because I am out at the moment. So.
Where are you? You're in a pub? Or friends?
Yeah.
A pub?
Yeah.
He's pubbing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's been a few things that have stumped me so far, especially biology stuff. Some of it I know, some of it I definitely don't. I am.
Jen,
Yeah. Yep.
I'm back in again because I've just you're not you just sound like a mushroom to me at the moment.
Yep.
It's all a bit.
I
I'm gonna
was
try and come in again.
okay. Can we have life live? Life on this earth lives. See if Jeff can make his way back in. Is that better, Jeff? Is that better?
Little bit.
Little bit? How you been?
It's a little bit better. I probably just think I don't have a very good connection where I am. I think so.
Probably.
I don't know how I'm sounding. So.
Oh, you sound fine actually most of the time. It only junk shops a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
How's it been being back at work?
Sorry, Sorry, jumping again.
It's jumping again. I said, how is it being back at work?
Let me try another. Let me try another spot. See if it sort of comes a bit better.
Okay. In the meantime, Dave asks, is there intelligent life anywhere out in space? Because there's bugger all down here on Earth. Hi, Sammy. It's highly probable. In terms of life being out there in the universe, I would say that we could almost guarantee it at a 99% chance of there being life somewhere else. Life has proven itself to be tenacious on Earth. It is life literally wants to keep going. Despite multiple mass extinction events, life comes back and fights harder to be there. The chances of it only evolving here is unlikely. I'm pretty sure, well, even though we don't know exactly the conditions that cause life to start here, I'm pretty sure they will have at least happened in a few other places in our galaxy. The bigger question, though, which is the one that you're asking, Dave, is there intelligent life? Evolution doesn't have to tend towards intelligence.
You sound so much better.
Cool. Yeah, so evolution doesn't have to tend towards intelligence. Yay! Hey, Jeff. Evolution just goes for the things that help a species survive. Intelligence happened to be one of those things that helped with us, but I mean, for billions, well, hundreds of millions of years since life evolved onto land, evolution didn't tend towards that as far as we know. I mean, there may have been other intelligent species that evolved before us, but we don't know. We don't see the evidence for it. But it did evolve big animals and animals that were specialized in doing certain things. We had the dinosaurs and everything. But intelligence wasn't a requirement of evolution. So is it going to be something that happens on other worlds if life has evolved? That's a big question. Intelligent life might be incredibly rare. Except for one thing. We're not the only intelligent species on this planet. We are probably the most technological. We are definitely the most technologically advanced species on this planet. But we're not the only intelligent species. Dolphins and whales are both quite intelligent. Elephants are quite intelligent. There are some birds that are actually quite intelligent by reasonable standards. So if we have a species that evolves on another world and evolves dexterous limbs, so they can develop tools and use those tools, and are able to walk upright, and they've got the resources that they can use to create the tools that they need to become more technologically advanced, then yeah, I don't see why intelligent life wouldn't evolve. But it's not a requirement. So is there other intelligent life in the galaxy? That's a way bigger question and could actually be unlikely. And there is another point of that, in that we know the universe we're in could conceivably last for over 1 trillion years, and we are 13.8 billion years into that trillion years. We are very, very, very early on in the universe. If intelligent technological life is very, very rare to evolve, it is very conceivable we are the only ones in our galaxy. Sammy, what is the electric universe theory? No. The electric universe theory is pseudoscience. There is no evidence to support it, and I'm not going down that rabbit hole. So, Critical Ripple. Oh, do you think there was life on Venus before it went crazy and moved in with the crazy volcano people? Quite possibly. Given that we know that that meteorites have been shared between the Earth, Mars, and Venus on fairly regular intervals, and that it is possible for microbes to hitchhike rides on those things, it's quite possible that at one point Mars, Earth, and Venus all had life that probably started on one of those worlds and then spread to the others. Earth's the only one that survived with any complex life. There's quite probably still microbes in the clouds of Venus and on Mars. But complex life seems to be less likely, although they have recently confirmed that there are watery lakes near the northern pole of underground lakes near the northern pole of Mars. So it is conceivable we could have a more complex life living in that. It'd have to be highly salt tolerant, because the only way this water is not freezing on Mars is if it's very salty. But there are some microbes and multicellular organisms that can survive in heavy salt environments. So it's conceivable that we might find something there. Hi, Microraptor. Check to make sure that Jeff didn't try to get back in, because I wasn't listening. Nope. Okay. How many planets out there with so many planets out there should be some intelligent life out there? Conceivable, not necessary, for the reasons I said before. Evolution doesn't necessarily tend towards intelligence. Life, definitely. I would be incredibly surprised if our galaxy, I'm not even going to talk about the universe, if our galaxy isn't teeming with life, even complex life. Intelligent life is the bigger question. No, that's okay, Jeff. I get that your connection wasn't great. That's okay. Oh, you pinged me on Twitter, Sammy. Hang on a sec. I will... Sent you the link, Sam. Now, where was I? Microraptor, as far as I understand it, life seems like it turned up on Earth almost as soon as it was possible for it to appear. So maybe it's pretty likely as long as the planet is suitable. Yes, that's my point on it, Microraptor. It certainly seems, as I said before, life is very tenacious. It seems that we know the building blocks of life are out there in the universe, even in space, not even on planets. So it would seem that life seems to be that the chemistry for life seems to be something that wants to happen, given enough time. And yes, it was fairly early on that the first microbes appeared on the young Earth once it had cooled down enough for that to happen. So it is highly probable that that has happened in other places as well. We don't know if life started here though. It could have just as easily started on Mars or Venus before it started on Earth. Panspermia is a possible solution to life getting here. It doesn't have to be though, because it as I said, it's probably quite possible that life happens in that. There is another option with the starting of life too. Given that we know the building blocks of life actually come together in clouds in space anyway, it is possible that the heat generated in star formation in the disk around the star is where life gets its energy from to start, and that life actually starts during as microbial life in the disk that forms the planets around the star. So the type of life that goes throughout a star system might always be the same, because that life actually might evolve in the disk, which is kind of fascinating if you think about it. Hi Sam, how are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks.
I got you in the wrong spot so no one can see you.
Whoop.
I just got to shift you around on the screen, that's all. Alright. I don't know why I can't shift you. There you are. Does that put you on the screen?
Yes.
It does, in the middle. Cool, awesome. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Just got myself a cuppa.
Yeah? Oh, TARDIS time.
Yeah, Hoovian.
Do I think that the X-17 particle is real? Okay, you win on that one. I have absolutely no idea what the X-17 particle is. You win, Dave. You get a point for that one. I'm wondering if that's an obscure reference to some book that I haven't read. Yeah, no, your mug is awesome. I will shift a cookie jar so you can get a better look.
Nice. So X-17 is actually it's a hypothetical subatomic particle.
Okay.
To explain certain anomalous measurements. I forget what, but basically it's a fifth fundamental force in theory.
Oh, okay. So.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the fundamental particles that we've hypothesized might exist because we've needed them as exchange particles or to solve a problem within physics have actually turned out to exist. Higgs boson being one of them. So it's not impossible. You know, if we've got a good grounding for thinking that it might exist, it possibly does. There's a lot more, as I've said before, there's a lot more that we don't know about quantum mechanics than we do. And if anybody ever says that they understand quantum mechanics, they're lying. Yeah, you're definitely lying. If you say, I understand quantum mechanics, you're full of shit. I love it, but it's to my mind one of the hardest fields in science to get into.
Yeah. My favourite part of quantum mechanics is the completely reasonable theory that the entire universe is a wave.
Well, yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, it does from the point of view that what we think of as solid matter is still energy.
Yeah.
particles are just concentrated energy. So in this little point where this little atom is, you've got a lot of concentrated energy, hence E equals mc squared. And that's all matter is. It's concentrated energy. We live in a universe of energy. So the thought that the universe is a wave when energy is basically waves kind of makes sense. And that also solves the problem of quantum entanglement too.
True. I mean, at the very least, we know that.
Hi again, Jeff.
Hi, I can hear you better this time. I've moved about 10 feet and I've suddenly got a great connection.
Brilliant.
Wi-Fi.
Awesome.
So I hope the background noise isn't too bad here.
So Jeremiah particle, yeah, I've got so much energy. There are days I really wish I could do an energy conversion like E equals mc squared within my body, because I really need the extra energy some days. or another thing, you wouldn't have to go on a diet if you could suddenly just release a whole heap of energy somewhere else. You could just siphon off you.
Well, yeah. If humans could, I hear loads of weird conspiracy theory shit about humans being able to control quantum fields with their mind, and I'm like, if we could do that, we could literally think away fat.
Yeah, not only that, we would all be we'd all be able to shape change.
Yeah,
that would come in very handy for me.
Honestly, I think that I can think of many people who'd like to be able to shape change.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'd make it so that both my ears are pointed and not just one, but I would.
A proper pointed, and you could be a Vulcan.
I'd probably be looking like Jason Momoa or something right now if that was possible.
I'd probably do my medical transition without having to wait for several years.
Yeah.
I'm non-binary.
Yeah, well, you could just go, and you'd be done.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, if we could control the quantum fluctuations within our own bodies and around ourselves, magic would be real.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Be cool though. That now that would be a great thing for a novel.
I actually, I'm writing a book, and there is one character who can do that, but that character is basically panpsychism.
Yeah.
So the universe becomes conscious through. My excuse is some quantum stuff I don't understand because I built my mind in 3 dimensions. From the perspective of the book. And then he basically builds the universe around him, discovers... I'm going with the many worlds hypothesis, discovers other universes, visits them, and then decides to use himself as a sandbox to build stuff.
Okay, so Microraptor wants to know what your pronouns are, Sam.
All of them.
All of them.
The only way you can misgender me is by trying to correct me on my pronouns.
Just for anyone's reference on my pronouns are Lord, Master, or Darth.
One sec.
That's dreadful. Yeah. Yeah. So, do we have another question from anyone? Yeah. Now they're discussing E equals mc squared in the chat.
So I'm like quite happy listening to it because I'm like science. I'm just like completely.
Well, in all honesty, Jeff, if somebody asks a history question, you might have to save my ass.
That's fair. I am general nerd, but I don't know loads about any given thing.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my favorite thing to say is I know quite a lot of things, about a small amount of things about awful lot of subjects.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get me off point.
I think probably
That's
the only thing I'm good at is playing D&D.
African or European Microraptor? What is the SP velocity of an unladen swallow? What year was Jesus born? He wasn't.
Provided Jesus was born, he was actually born in 8. I forget the new terms, but BCE.
Yeah.
Because they were off by 8 years when they tried to start at 0.
Ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything. 42. 6
Yeah,
times
we
9.
know that. Everyone knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that one. Life answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. Everybody knows that.
Yep.
6 BC. Yeah, if he was born at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? If it's a
Nerdy
real,
rodent.
are we talking? We're talking about an actual real figure or a group of historical, multiple historical figures, or a mythological thing altogether. And I'm kind of on the fence on the whole.
Yeah, I am
Jesus
too, but
mythicism thing. So
I am
personally
too.
of the opinion that someone called Yeshua probably existed. There were a lot of Jewish, and I'm going to use the word cult here. I don't mean cult in the modern sense. I mean it in the old sense, as in a group of people who worship one deity. There were a bunch of Jewish cults around in the day being started by individuals, and I find it probable that one of them was called Yeshua, and that's where Christianity is derived from.
Yeah, there's only one real historical Brian, though. So
Yeah, but I mean, if Jesus wasn't born, Jesus was made by God. No, he's born.
That depends on if you're a Catholic.
No, look, I actually don't care. That's my position on it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Was he born? Did he exist? Who cares? He certainly wasn't a god, or the son of a god. Well, not the son of that god, because I think we could quite substantially prove that the God of the Bible doesn't exist.
Oh, I think that's
I would personally go, if the God of the Bible does exist, it is in no way similar to as described in the Bible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean. The God of the Bible doesn't exist. There could be a God that was mistaken. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a polytheist, so
yeah.
I'm one of the entire Ocean's lot.
I'm not against the concept of I'm not against the idea of there being a god. There could quite possibly be although a god sounds ridiculous. Why would there just be one? That makes no sense at all. But I'm quite prepared for the fact that there could be a god. Do I think that those gods particularly care what happens in the universe as it is? No. I'd be more. I would be more inclined to believe a deistic or a non-interferal type of god than any god that actually gives a shit about us.
I can see that.
So yeah, but I don't see the necessity in worshipping a god like that either.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because I presume you're using worship in the term that Christians tend to use.
Yes, I am.
Because it means paganism.
Yes, I'm aware it means something different in paganism, but that was my point, really. That the concept of worshipping and giving devotion to a deity when I can't see any evidence for a deity that actually is actively involved in our day-to-day lives, what is the point? They obviously don't want it or need it.
Can I ask Sam a question?
Yeah, be my guest.
I was just saying, do you have a particular pantheon that you're into, or not really, or just multiple pantheons, or?
So my home base, as it were, is Hellenism, the Greek gods. But I don't stick strictly to that.
Well, I do a weekly show with Hissy. She's polytheist and with the Hellenistic gods as well. So I used to be very much into the Norse a few years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I used to term a Sartre, although that's got a bit of a bad connotation, because that's what a lot of like these far right lunatics tend to identify with.
Within circles, a Sartre tends to be fine. A Sartre folk tends to be a big red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there's a couple of groups that are sort of like that, because me and my ex actually tried to start a group, and it was one of those things we just made it very clear we did not want any of those folk types around.
Yeah.
Here's a question both of us can answer, Jeff. Nerdy asked, what is the worst question Dave has ever asked on his show?
Oh.
There's so many of them.
There's so many. But I'm just because of the fact that it's become a meme now, I'm going to say spatula hands.
I mean, I would have to go with any of those questions where he proposed a moral dilemma and then refused to let us use our intelligence to work our way out of the moral dilemma.
Yeah.
Anytime Dave changes the rules.
The goalpost.
Yes. Every time Dave has moved the goalpost, they are the worst questions. Hi, Raven.
But you got to understand, obviously, Dave's trying to go in a certain direction or whatever, and it's like...
but it's incredibly frustrating.
It is, because you think you found a third option here, and he's like, no, I'm not.
I won't let you have
option.
That third option. Come on, we were smart enough to think of the third option. Why can't we have it?
Yeah.
I do like hypotheticals, but if you're smart enough to think around the hypothetical, you should be allowed to. You just don't like the fact that we're smart enough to think around your hypotheticals, Dave.
Is Dave still in the chat? Because I can't see it anymore. So.
Yeah, Dave's still in the chat. He said, we just don't like hypotheticals.
Hypothetically, Dave, there's always a third option.
Dirty said that's not... that isn't moving the goalpost. That's Dave's clarification. He's clarifying his questions.
Yeah.
No, you moved the goalpost. You definitely moved the goalposts. If you don't want us to think outside the box, make sure the box has some more solid sides, Dave.
I'd also say, just this is just me, some of like the sex kind of questions I'm not always comfortable with, because that's just because it's personally to me a bit of a private thing. But
me on the other hand,
so I'm always a little more reserved on those questions. It's not that I won't answer them, but I might not give I might not give a very in-depth answer to a lot of them.
It's understandable. Can't Dave?
This is highly I'm gonna have to go and watch some of these later.
Oh, the critical questions. You haven't watched them yet.
You got to get on to one. We got to get you on one of them.
Yeah, they're good fun. I do a couple of shows now with stuff like that too. One's a news one that Jeff and I actually started, and then Jeff went back to work, so he wasn't able to continue.
Yeah, it was. So it was going to be like a joint project with me and Jed, and then unfortunately, like my work schedule, like the lockdowns ended, my work schedule changed, and now so I did like the pilot, and I haven't been on one since. So.
It's pretty dreadful.
I was going to be a regular team captain kind of thing, but
he was.
I frequently kind of pop up in chats, but I don't tend to. I've been on Neil's show. That's about it.
Dave, if you want to ask me any of your questions from your show, you'll have to come in here and do them in person. Because I reserve the right to ask it back of you.
I don't think that was the purpose of the Stump Jen stream. We come in here with one of Dave's questions.
Yeah, you only get to do that if you're in here in person, Dave. You already answered it. I didn't see that. Did I see that show? Was I on that show? No, because that'd be one of your ones that's in stupid o'clock for me.
We had quite a fun. We had quite a fun one last night. Actually, I thought it was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah. If Dave had messaged me closer to the show, I could have been on last night.
I don't know what. I don't know why. I don't know why it is. I get a real kick out of scientist Mel trying to do an English accent.
Yeah. I have some friends who try and do English accents, and it's just like, okay then.
So, Brainbug asks, in binomial God, ban it, my brain won't say the word.
Binomial nomenclature.
Thank you. What does the prefix suffix Petera mean? I should know this.
I'm tapping out on that one. I'm sorry.
This is maths, and I should know this. And I've drawn a blank, and I really hate that you've asked me a maths question that I can't answer.
Well, to be fair, Jen, look, we did establish that you're smarter than the flat earther earlier in the stream. So.
Yeah, you did that.
I couldn't help myself. What's 5 divided by 0? And I thought, should I do? If you have a triangle with sides 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
If you've got a circle, it has infinite angles.
I like pterodactyl. Sorry. Oh, circle has infinite angles.
Yeah.
Depending how you define the angle.
Depending on how you define the circle. Yeah, it's like
the deal of a circle wouldn't, but any other circle would.
Circles are awesome because pi is an amazing number. The number of places where pi pops up, although I prefer tau to be honest, but
that's fair. Tau has a more fun.
I heard phi was sort of one H is a lot better than pi. Sorry, that was awful.
The thing about tau is it's more useful in engineering than pi is, from an engineering perspective.
Pi is more useful in home economics and food technology and stuff. Or in computing, because Raspberry Pis.
Pi is a pretender. I like that theory.
I don't know.
I clicked the wrong button.
Whoops.
Sorry, people. I clicked the wrong button.
Now everyone can see your Twitter.
If you have a circle with 3 times... Yeah, people can see my Twitter. I do for a second. It's irrelevant.
If you have a circle with 3 times 60-degree angles in it, then you're probably taking some really strong
stuff. Yeah. Do you want to hop in, Brainbug?
Yeah, come on in.
I'll shoot you a link, and you can inform me of what I've forgotten about maths. It's always the way, isn't it? When you've studied something, you're always in.
Brainbug's smarter than all of us, I think. So.
Oh yeah. I'll wear that. Brainbug's a lot smarter than most of us.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit like I've not done binomial distributions in a while. So
same.
If you ask me about them, I could probably get the general gist, but the specifics would be beyond me.
I have a degree in mathematics, and I can't bloody remember. So
I barely passed my GCSE in maths. So
I mean, do you know how A levels work, Jen?
Yeah, roughly.
So yeah, my A levels that I finished last year were math, physics, computer science.
Okay, yep.
Oh, nerd.
Yeah, your A levels are similar to our high school stuff. Year 11 and 12 stuff. Yeah.
Yes, it's like your GCSEs are what your basic school thing, and like A levels are like your first sort of year or so college sort of thing. So
that's AS levels, and then A levels is college total.
Oh, right,
So,
okay, yeah.
college for us.
A levels of college.
So A levels are
Yeah.
college, which is 16 to 18 education.
Yeah, which is the same as
Yeah.
our year 11 and 12. Yeah. Yeah, that's year 11 and 12 for us. It's still technically in high school, but you're doing a different path in education at that point, so you're actually specializing in subjects. So
Yeah.
I did physics, maths, god damn it, English literature. I can't remember what else I did. It's too long ago. I'm pushing towards 50. I can't remember.
See, when I did further education, I got a few city and guilds, which were sort of tradesman qualifications
Yeah.
for trades. I don't know how I got any of them really, because on paper I'm a qualified shipwright, and I want to stress on paper. You give me that, I kind of think I could build a boat to save my life.
Why is there a weird pocket of positive charge at the bottom of a thundercloud? That's a good question, Dave. It's a great physics question to do with weather science, which I'm going
to be back in 2 minutes, right? I've just got to use the little boys' room here, so.
No worries, Jeff. I do understand that it's to do with the movement of the particles within the rain cloud that builds up the static electricity, and the Earth is the Earth sink, so you're having the positive charge would build up on the underside because it's where it can discharge to would be towards the Earth. So I'm assuming it's got to do with that, but exactly off the top of my head, I honestly can't answer your question there.
I would assume similar. I'd probably go something along the lines of heavier elements would be lower down in the cloud, and lighter elements would tend to that's where the electrons would be displaced to, leaving a positive charge at the bottom.
Oh yeah, because you'd have like a anode cathode array between heavier and lighter elements within the cloud. The differences in weight there would be minimal, though. I mean, even water vapor, even compared to the dust that helps form the clouds and the raindrops, you're not talking a lot of difference in there. But yeah, you could be right in that.
Depends how dense your cloud is, I guess.
The main positive charge is at the top of the rain cloud, so there's a small amount of positive charge at the bottom. Main negative charge. Oh yes, of course, main negative charge, because the flow of electricity. Yes, it would have to be. So why do we have a small positive charge where we would normally expect the negative charge to be? Yeah, that's probably got to do with the movement of the dynamic movement of the particles within the cloud itself. So the bottom, so it is actually a mystery. Yeah, I was trying to work backwards and solve the problem for you, Dave, and I confused myself about whether. Yes, of course, it has to be negative on the bottom of the cloud, or you wouldn't, or lightning would go in the other direction because of the flow of electrons. Bug the fuck out of Foreman. But it's possible it's just got to do with the dynamics of the system itself, the way that the particles themselves move within the rain cloud, and that distribution of mass within the rain cloud, as Sam said. So, a thundercloud is going to be a chaotic system. So, actually figuring it exactly out would, not without some pretty substantial computer models to try and model it. I don't think you could figure it out just by sending balloons up into thunderclouds to measure it. You'd know it's there, but you wouldn't be able to figure out why it's there. But
it's like why airplanes fly.
Why airplanes fly.
Yeah, the exact mechanism behind that we still don't get. We just understand that they do.
We do understand the concepts of lift and surfaces.
Well, yeah, but that's only one hypothetical, because we've also found that often when a plane is flipped upside down, it'll still fly, even though you'd expect then the lift to be reversed.
To push it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the movement of the air over the wing.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to fly a plane upside down though.
It is. I
Because
mean, there's bound to be an answer, but right now there's still multiple different contested hypotheses, if I remember correctly from doing some reading.
yeah, the physics of airflow is quite complicated because it's a chaotic system. Chaotic systems are the hardest ones for us to understand because they're almost impossible to model.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's why we and it's fluid dynamics. It's the same thing as the cloud. There, it's fluid dynamics. So you think, oh, they're droplets. It's vapor. It's fluid. It's a fluid. Air is even though it's a gas, the dynamics of it is still fluid dynamics. So yeah. It's all very clever and fascinating.
There's a question in the chat that's bothering me, and I've
Which
tried
one?
to type out several responses to it. Is like, in computer science, what is the name for reconstructing damaged parts of an image using deep learning? And
yeah, that's going to bug me. Yeah, I should remember this too.
And I don't want to Google it.
No, I don't like Googling. I'd rather say to Nerdy, you've got me, Nerdy. I have no idea what it's called off the top of my head. I have heard it in the past. It's not something I do, so it's not something I'm aware of consciously. But I have read the papers on it in the past.
I should know it because I learned it in A level, but I don't know what.
Yeah. My degrees at college were in maths and computer science, so yeah, I should. Although, granted, when I did my degree in computer science, it was early days of image manipulation, so there wasn't AI image manipulation, and I honestly haven't kept that much up with the AI stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I tend to focus less on AI because I'm planning on going into security side of stuff.
Oh, okay.
I should have known that.
So, okay, Microraptor, I am both intersex and trans. I mean, yeah. I will, when arguing with people who are bigots, flash my intersex card at them because it's so much fun to screw them over. Yeah, I went through similar things to other trans people, so I claim both titles. Intersex, trans, and pan. Yeah, I think if you have a shared experience with someone, with a group, then you are part of that. Yeah. Then really, you're part of that group. It's why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting that while technically the label pan fits me, I just use the term queer because it's significantly easier than explaining the micronuclei of the fact that I'm also a particular form of grey ace and non-binary, and it gets messy fast.
Yep.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Oh, we lost him again. That might have been my fault.
I've genuinely never been attracted to a straight person.
Wow. I have. Yeah. I to be perfectly honest, given that most of my relationships have been with straight people, I actually think I'd probably get more out of being in a relationship with somebody else who was pan, or along that line, pan, queer, or bi. Because
I'm also polyamorous, which is that confuses people.
Polyamory, yeah. See, I like the idea of polyamory, but I couldn't do it because I get jealous.
I also get jealous, but I can make it work.
Oh, okay.
So my brain works better on systems. So if I know I get to spend the day with this person on this day, then them spending time with other people isn't going to bother me because I know when I'm not going to be left out.
All right. Nettie answered the question for us. It's called in-painting.
Yes, that's why a minute ago I said, damn it, I should have known that one.
Ah, okay. Yep. Everyone gets jealous in polyamory. Is that true? I mean, I've never tried it because I know I get jealous.
So, most people get jealous within a polyamorous relationship. Everyone can get jealous over something, but talking about relationship specific, not everyone does.
Yeah.
And some people experience both compersion, which is enjoyment from seeing your partner enjoying themselves, alongside jealousy, and that gets messy. But
you want to multiply a number by 2, you rotate the bits to the left. And I can't remember what the actual 8086 instruction is for rotate bits left. If you want to multiply by 2. You can divide by 2 by rotating to the right. No, I've said that the wrong way around, haven't I?
yes.
Other way around. You know what I was doing? I was looking at myself on the screen, and because it's flipped, I was thinking, no, I'm talking about that the right way. I was picturing the bits. I go, I've done it. Yes, sorry. You rotate in the other direction to multiply and divide to what I originally said. So, logical shift, yes. Or rotate.
Things being mirrored is interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Nerdy. I did all my original assembly programming on the 6502, and I honestly remember more of that than I do the 8086, even though I've programmed assembly in both.
I didn't actually look at the question because I could have actually told you that if I'd read the question.
Ah,
Just
okay.
hearing it didn't make sense to me.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you can do logical shift. My TS teacher used to put up a thing on the board and just be like, how many logical shifts in what direction do I have to do to get this number to this number?
Yeah. Don't forget you also... It's... Oh, we lost him again. Don't forget you've also got to worry about the carry register for the bits you rotate off the end and keep track, because you multiply up enough, you're going to get a number that's bigger than your base. So if it's on the 8086, you've got 16-bit registers. Yeah, 16-bit registers.
Yeah, 16-bit.
Yeah. I had to think about that because then my brain started thinking of the 68,000 where you've got 32-bit registers. But no, the 8086 only had 16-bit registers.
That's all peripheral reading for me. This is not stuff I've got taught in class. Python is evil, critical cripple. Python is only useful for a mathematician.
Yeah, people these days don't tend to learn assembly very much. Mostly because modern computers are fast enough that using a high-level language is so much easier and makes so much more sense.
I learned C#, so.
And it is very, very hard to program in assembly on a multitasking operating system.
Yeah. I mean, granted, one of my exam questions on my last mock I did, because my year group was the year group that didn't do actual exams. They gave us like a 12-mark question that was like, write down the assembly language that would be required to complete this, I think, for loop.
Oh, wow. Let's try Jeff again. Right. Is it going to work this time?
Is it going to function?
It's not looking good.
Oh, there we go.
We kind of got you, Jeff.
Are you familiar with the tech gremlin curse, Jen?
Not again.
We can hear you, Jeff.
I sort of heard you then. But...
Yeah, you're working fine. It's just, you aren't hearing us well. Kicks Nerdy in the shin. What the hell did Nerdy? Oh, which Edian is better? Depends what you want to do, Dave.
Python is not useful for everything. Python is useful if you need something.
I can hear you fine at the moment. You just seem to have frozen on my screen. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not frozen for everyone else, so that's good. What do you think about
this is me thinking, I can go old school and go on YouTube in the pub like I used to, but
yeah, it's a resolution thing. There's so much data being transmitted that you're hitting a problem, a bandwidth issue.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask a question about Harvard architecture design processes and their alternative, and I can't remember what it's called.
Give me a minute.
Help.
Von Neumann. Harvard and von Neumann are the two big ones.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or von Neumann, depending how you pronounce it, but
yeah,
you know.
I mean, you've. It's because I do a lot of development stuff using Atmegas, programmable AVRs.
Yeah.
The Atmega usually because I'm doing a lot of stuff that's 5 volts, so it's handy having 5 volts, and 8 bits is fine if you're not doing too much processing anyway.
Don't go overboard.
Sorry?
There's no need to go overboard when you've got very limited stuff you're trying to use it for. You don't need like 30 volt capacity when you're only using 8 max.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Arduino platform makes it really easy to do initial development for Atmega chips, and then you can develop your own boards later. So, I mean, I even put a system in place that I just use the Atmega, the Arduino board actually directly inside the box. Because it was easier. It worked. I figured out what it was going to cost me to buy the chips and get a board design and do it, compared to just ordering a whole heap of boards that I needed from China.
Yeah.
And it was cheaper to buy the Arduinos and program them and just.
Arduinos are dirt cheap. The only cost that might increase it to be higher than the ones you can just buy is if you put a significant amount of your time into it when you could be working or whatever, then you can potentially argue it's more expensive because you don't get paid for the hours you're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's most of the time it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah. It blew my mind because I was in the process of designing a circuit board, and I go, how cheap can I get these Arduinos? Oh crap, that's cheaper than doing it.
I mean, I had a concept with a friend at one point. We never did get around to building it. Basically, get like 8 Raspberry Pis and like 30 Arduinos or so, and just like connect them up in some big system to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Arduinos here. So somewhere in one of my drawers here, I've got a couple of Mega 2650s, 2560s. I can't remember the numbers. I can never remember the numbers.
Numbers are frustrating.
Yeah, I know what they are though. So, and I'm actually going to be using one of them to build a adapter for the Commodore 64, so you can plug a Super Nintendo controller pad and a PS2 mouse into the 64, or any other Commodore computer with a user port.
That's useful.
It is, and I'm hoping to send it across to the 8-bit guy for a new gaming project he's working on.
Nice.
So, because he wanted the joystick interface, and I'm like, yeah, if I use it, probably won't end up being a board with an Arduino on it. In this case, it would I'll do the development with an Arduino, but it'd probably actually make more sense to put a chip on the expansion board, and because he wants to sell it with his games, so it makes more sense to bulk produce, and at that point you're actually better off. But the whole point of it is that for the way he's designed his game, a normal Commodore joystick with the single button doesn't work. You don't get joystick ports on a PET anyway, and the game's being written to run on every single Commodore computer ever made. So, the plan is that he'd have this interface you can plug in and use a Super Nintendo controller, because then you get the enough buttons to do all the functions he wants from the controller. rather than having to use keyboard and joystick, which is really annoying. Keyboard and mouse is good, but keyboard and joystick sucks. But I want the mouse because
I hate playing games on the keyboard.
I'm also developing a game for the Commodore 64 as well, so and I want the mouse. But the other thing I'm going to do in it is build a small sound circuit in the card that can play music similar to what the MT32 did back in the day, so that you can create a soundtrack and have it play out the user port by the Amiga, so it does music mixing and stuff like that.
I have a massive soundboard just kind of here because my dad used to be a sound tech and I've stolen a bunch of his stuff.
Ah, cool.
I'll probably use that, and I'm sure there's another one around. I'll probably deconstruct at some point.
Ah, awesome. So yeah, okay. So I'm not paying any attention. There was a question in the chat for Jeff.
I'll try.
The question is, in which Asterix book is Dogmatics, because my brain just would not say it properly, first introduced?
He was introduced in the book Asterix in the Banquet. And what happened was they were on this tour of Gaul. They'd had a bet with the Romans that they could get all the way around Gaul without them stopping them. And all the way throughout the book, there's from when they get to Laetitia, which is modern day Paris, there's this little dog that starts following them around, and all the way around, and he doesn't, and nobody notices him until they get back to the village, where he just gives this little bark, and then Obelix sort of picks him up and makes friends with him. So that's when Dogmatics was introduced. So,
oh wow, that is kind of awesome.
We got a good one tomorrow. I just actually heard back from Hissy actually whilst I was having the connection issues, because last week's one was a bit. Left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. Really, it was a bit too much of.
Oh, we've lost Jeff again.
Oh dear.
At least you got to answer the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But tomorrow we got Asterix and Caesar's Gift, which
that's
is
a good
actually
story.
kind of and it's very topical at the moment as elections and politics.
Coronaviruses. You are having so many problems there, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I've got a Wi-Fi network that keeps cutting in and out. It's the problem.
Okay. Everyone should go and watch Jeff and Hissy. I've missed watching a few of them because I've had other things to do, and I've still got. I have a whole heap of stuff I was supposed to get done today, and I spent most of today with a migraine, so I achieved nothing. And I have got streams all weekend, but I have stuff I have to achieve at some point in the next 2 days. So I've got 2 days to do it in.
Just so people know, myself and Hissy, we take turns to host them on our channels, and unfortunately, poor Hissy.
Cut out again.
And then we got the one with Native Americans on her channel next week, which I remember being a controversial one.
That's going to be. We can't show these pictures.
That's going to be that bad, is it?
Yeah.
I know it's going to be. I mean, if it's really, really bad, we might just skip the entire story if it's really bad.
I think you'll find Jeff just has his hair tied back.
Yeah. Yep. There we go.
Just quick flick. Oh, that was good for my headache.
There we go.
I like the fact that you yelled that, Jenny. I've been going for nearly 2 hours here. This has been a lot of fun, guys, and it's so nice to meet you, Sam. I know we've interacted a few times on Twitter, but but it's nice to meet you in a stream. So yeah, I might look at winding this up so I can get a nap before I end up on because I'll be on sit down with debunkers later with Jay. And I don't know that I'm actually up to it. I'm so tired. But I'll try and be there because I said I would.
You doing the creepy show tonight, are you?
Yeah, I'm doing the creepy show with Jay.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. That's
It
a
is.
lot of fun.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm doing Equality the night after, so yay!
Oh, you're yeah. By the way, if anyone in the chat is not subbed to Sit Down with the Bunkers, you definitely should check their channel out. It's awesome.
please do. I would put the link in, but I honestly don't know what I've done with my link list.
They're one of the very few channels that I actually like, pay membership to join because they're that good. I don't do that with a lot of channels.
So, what have you guys got happening? Oh, you've just described yours, Jeff, because you've got.
Well, I think I just went into depth about my stream tomorrow, but that's 1 p.m. UK time, so it's about 8 a.m. Eastern in America. I do not know what it is in your time, Jen, but
it's normally it's normally about 7 or 8 o'clock at night for me, and I think I'm 7 hours different. So what's that? 8 o'clock. So yeah, that's cool. Your show's always good. When I can catch it, I'll catch it. If I get all my stuff done tomorrow, I will catch it. Otherwise, I'll still be doing stuff. I might still catch it. I might have it playing in the background whilst I'm working.
What I'm finding with those, myself and Hissy are finding that, okay, it's not going to have like a mass appeal with those streams, but the people that like them seem to really like them. So
yeah,
we've got kind of a loyal little audience we've got there off that.
Sam, what are you doing?
I'm under. Well, I've got a YouTube channel by Sam Chaos. Next week I'm either releasing a video about consent or about my issues with Solar Scriptura. Not decided which. And I scream into the void on Twitter, and I'll probably show up on Neil the 604 Atheists after.
Oh, Neil's cool.
And you've just got a new sub because I actually wasn't subbed, Sam. So that's fixed.
Thanks. In the chat, Jenny Shush.
I will sub to your channel when we're off of here, Sam. All right.
So please go and sub to Jeff and Sam if you're not already. I'm pretty sure most of the people in the chat are already subbed to you though, Jeff. But if you're not subbed to Sam, Sam only has 24 subs, 25 subs. Let's see if we can get Sam at least to 30. There's enough of you in the chat that's possible.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Let's see if we can get
I'll
Sam.
just say I will just say if there is anyone not subbed to me in the chat, help me out again because YouTube being YouTube. Put me below 300 again after it took me ages to get there.
Sods.
So bloody help me out here.
Yeah, help Jeff out. Jeff's was lovely and put the links in there. So thank you, Jeff. Dave, you're Jeff. Oh, shit. What's wrong with me? Sub to Sam. 29 subs now, Sam. 1 to go to hit that 30.
Hey, cheers. Sorry, just had to deal with small humans.
Small humans.
Yes. I have 7 little brothers and sisters, so it was almost inevitable we'd get interrupted at some point.
Fair enough. Critical Jeff, no wait. Yay! So you made it to 30, Sam. You're up to 30.
Well done, Sam.
Well done.
Yeah, cheers.
We'll have to get you on a few other shows and get you up to that 100 mark. So
yeah, that'd be good. Try and get out some more content. For the moment, I'm just talking about philosophy stuff mainly.
Cool. We'll get you on a couple of fun streams, like Critical Cripple stream and maybe one of my quiz streams. The quiz stream I've started doing at the moment isn't the news one. Did you catch it last night, Jeff?
I didn't, Jen. I was loaded.
I'm mucking around with a new one to do with weird words in the English language.
Okay.
So
That sounds very fun. Weird words
it
in
was
the English
fun.
language.
It does, where I give the word and people have to try and figure, and my guests then say what they think the meanings for these words are, and then I give them hints, and we get down to what the actual meaning is. But some of them are quite obscure, like doodle bag, no, doodle sack. Sorry, it's a doodle sack.
Well, Jen, I'd like to offer you my sincerest contrafibularities.
Contrafibularities.
That's a Blackadder reference if anyone else doesn't get that. But
Yeah.
Oh,
that was brilliant. The words in the dictionary that aren't actually there.
Yeah. Samuel Johnson's dictionary. You've written down every word in the English language. Yes, every word. Well, I hope you'll accept my sincerest contrafibularities. It's just the way
he's there quickly writing these word sounds.
That sort of shit can cause some discombobulation.
Discombobulation, good word. But yeah, I'm trying to find some really weird and obscure words that we can go through. So it was a lot of fun the other night, which was just basically a test to see if it'd work. So I'm hoping I'll do another one during the week, and we can see how that shows up. I'd like to go back to doing the news show, how Jeff and I originally envisaged it as a pre-recorded, edited show, because that means we can do it at all sorts of times, but put it out at a time that suits the most number of viewers. And that gives it the chance of having more guests, and Jeff can be involved again then if we do that.
Give me a chance for me to get on there.
Yeah, it gives Jeff a chance to be on it again as well. So I want to move back in that direction with that. So the other show is easier to run as a live show as well. So
that was a lot. That's a lot of fun. That news quiz thing.
It's also a lot of work and a lot of background stuff to get it at the length that you need for a live show. Whereas the word one is a lot easier to manage, so that works better.
I actually think you could probably do a round of this where on like Trump tweets.
Yeah.
You could probably do a whole round on Trump tweets.
I don't think Trump's tweeted in like the last day though, has he? Pretty much. Besides the fact that he's gone into hospital.
What were some of the other words we had last night? Oh yeah. Titty nope. Yeah, titty nope is a small quantity of something left over.
I've never heard that word before.
That's quite a fun one.
It is. Or a mel drop, which is a drop of mucus on the nose. That's a mel drop.
See, I sometimes quite like words where you can probably work out what it means from hearing it, but it's not a word you hear people use, like credulous.
Oh yeah, which is a good word. Which is a very good word. Yes, I'm feeling very credulous towards that. Well, one of the words I brought up last night when I had 2 American guests on last night was snicker snee, and I thought they would know it, and they didn't. So, to 2 British people who are aware of things like Gilbert and Sullivan and that, what's a snicker snee?
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
You don't, Sam?
No, I don't think.
Wow, I must be showing my age, or just maybe my appreciation for music.
That's possibly something I should.
Yeah, nerdy got it right. A snicker snee is a small thrusting knife, so it could be a sword, but usually a knife. So.
Okay. See, I've discovered that a lot of people don't know certain words that are apparently British that I didn't realise were British recently. Things like plonker.
I know plonker. You're a plonk.
Yeah, Rodney's a plonker.
You plonker,
Trump
Rodney.
is definitely a plonker.
Yeah, or a cock plonker, depending how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Oh, my favourite one is wank puffin.
Yeah, but that's not actually in the dictionary. Neither is cockwomble.
No, I was going to say.
Commonly used British.
Urban Dictionary, yes, not the official Oxford
one.
Dictionary. No.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. thank you for joining me, Jeff and Sam. It's been beautiful to meet you, Sam, and it's good to get on a stream again with you, Jeff. There are not enough of them at the moment. And thank you to everyone in the chat, to Jenny Morgan, Microraptor, Sammy, who I forgot to say hello to when he came in, to Nerdy, to Robert X, to Dave, and I can't remember Nana, who's there, Nana, I should say, not Nana. I always say Nana, I don't know why. Raven. I'm scrolling back to try and remember. And whoever else was there earlier on, like Paul Kamish, and there was other people as well. I can't remember. Thank you all for being there and for joining us. And tune in to sit down with debunkers later if you want to see more of me probably swearing at idiots at that point. So yeah, thank you. Good night. Bye.